President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. The chamber is now given to Ian Sari's defense to continue questioning the witness. You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors. Good afternoon, witness, and good afternoon to everyone in and around the courtroom. We're still back, Mr. Witness, prior to April 17, 1975. We're in the jungle. You're with Uncle Pol Pot. This morning, you told us that you would give him injections. Could you please tell us, when you were giving him these injections, were you alone, or were there others with you?
Response. When I gave him the injection, I was alone.
So it was just you and Uncle Pol Pot during those moments when you were giving him injections?
Yes, and on other occasions, his wife was also present.
And on those occasions, when you were alone with Uncle Pol Pot, did you have any conversation, small talk?
Response. Yes, there was a small talks, like you said. Sometimes he told me to tell my wife to cook this dish or that fish, and that it should not be salty. That's all.
Well, did he not ask you about what else was happening outside? What you were able to observe others doing? What conversations might be taking place? Did he never ask you about that?
Response. No, not at all.
All right. Now, before the fall of Phnom Penh, you had told us that at one point there was a meeting. I believe you called it a family affair. There was a meeting about guarding ammunition. This would have been someplace in the West Zone, Kampong Speu, perhaps. Do you recall discussing that?
Response. My duty was assigned to me by Pol Pot, that is to guard the ammunition and to make a proper list for that ammunition. That was his instruction. So I fulfilled my duty as instructed by him.
And what about Pong? Was he involved as well, or was just Pol Pot giving you direct and specific instructions?
Response. Pong was not in that office with me at the time. Pong was at the east of Tonle Sap, while I was at the west of Tonle Sap.
All right. Now, how much ammunition are we talking about?
As I recall, there was 2 or 3 tons of ammunition.
And by the standards of the day, was that a lot of ammunition? How would you quantify it?
Response. The quantity was not that many, not much more than that, and a bit later Phnom Penh fell.
And as I recall your testimony from yesterday, you remained guarding that ammunition for some time after Pol Pot and others had left. Is that correct?
Response. Yes, that is correct.
Do you know why Pol Pot selected you and had this meeting with you to guard this ammunition?
Response. I did not know the reason. However, at that time, my wife was pregnant, and maybe due to that pregnancy, he wanted me to take care of my wife at the time.
Well, was the ammunition also important and needed someone to be a trustworthy guard of that ammunition? Might that be a reason?
Response. To consider whether the ammunition was important, to my knowledge, of course, the ammunition was important, and another important factor was that he trusted me, and third, I had a wife who was pregnant there at the time.
And what about Chiem? Was he with you as well, or was he off with Pong?
Response. As I recall, Chiem was at the east of the river.
Do you know whether he was with Pong or under Pong at the time, or with someone else? Do you recall?
Response. He was with Pong because the office was under the supervision of Pong. I refer to the office located to the west, to the east, rather, of the Tonle Sap.
Now, this morning you told us that Pong was in fact closer to Pol Pot, your uncle, than you were. Do you know who had assigned Pong to the east? where he was located at that point in time?
Response: I did not know the reason.
Before Pong went off to the east, can we conclude, based on what you've told us this morning, that his immediate superior was Pol Pot?
Response: let me enlighten you on this matter. The hut that I referred to where I stayed, that is the one situated to the west of Tonle Sap, in the area of Krang Beng or Krang Dong. Pong was not there. There was myself, who was the second supervisor of the Pol Pot. So Pong did not make any trip between the west and the east of the river. He always stationed at the east of the river.
Okay, let me make sure that I understand correctly. So he was east of the river from 1968, 69, all the way to 75? Is that what you're telling us now?
Response: yes.
And it was during this period when Pong was still giving you instructions from day to day on what to do.
Response: when I left Pong, I did not receive any instruction from him. I only received instructions from Pol Pot.
All right. Maybe something is being lost in translation. When you were with Uncle Pol Pot, you told us this morning that you would receive instructions from Pong, who would receive his instructions for Pol Pot. Do I have it right?
Response: I would provide the same response, which is, whenever I was with Pong, I received instructions from him. And while Pong was not there, then I personally received instructions from Pol Pot.
Thank you for that, and I apologize for the confusion. Now, as I understand it, after the fall of Phnom Penh, about a month or so later, you, in fact, come to Phnom Penh. Is that correct?
Response: yes. It was about 1 or 2 months after, until after my wife delivered the baby, then I came to Phnom Penh together with her.
Now, when you left your post where you were guarding the ammunition, did you receive any written or oral instructions from anyone for you to leave that one location and come to Phnom Penh?
Response: times, as I recall. At that time, before he left, he instructed me that it should be handed over to the sector authority.
Now, when you say he, we're talking about Pol Pot. Uncle Pol Pot told you this.
Response: yes, he meant Pol Pot.
And when you came to Phnom Penh, when you immediately came to Phnom Penh, who did you report to, if anyone?
Response: upon my arrival in Phnom Penh, Pong came to meet me. I did not report to anyone else. Pong met me and he told me where I should stay.
And how did Pong know where to meet you? And of course, where did he meet you?
Response: Pong told me to live within the compound of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and that was to the west of the present Council of Ministers office.
Let me ask my question again. You said when you came to Phnom Penh, Pong came to you. Phnom Penh was then, as it is today, a large city. How did Pong know where to find you in order to give you instructions?
Response: I did not know how Pong arrived, but when I entered with other people, at that time I think there was a messenger who came to tell me that when I go to Phnom Penh, I should go to the Ministry of Defense. And when I were at the Ministry of Defense, people who were already there asked me to stay there temporarily. And then Pong came to tell me that I should stay there.
All right. And you told us that you worked for the Ministry of Defense for 1 or 2 months cleaning houses. I believe that's what you indicated to us the first day. Do I have it right?
Response: at that time, the place where I was asked to stay, I cleaned that place and also cleaned the surrounding areas together.
But who gave you those instructions? Or was it that you just wanted to keep yourself busy until you got formal instructions, formal briefings on what to do?
Response: it was again Pong who gave me instructions.
And when you left the Ministry of Defense, again, who came to you to inform you to leave and where to go?
Response: Pong instructed me to do the cleaning, and then Ian Sari did not yet arrive. It was Pong who told me to do the cleaning in those areas.
All right. Now, you told us that your wife was a cook at K1, right? And you said, translation, we all understand that's yes. At least I do. Now, who gave your wife the job at K1?
Response. It was again Pong.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but you also told us that you had a brother that was there who had been a soldier for the Vietnamese army back in 1970, I believe. And today we learned that he was a photographer. Can you please tell us, if you know, who gave your brother the job at K1?
Response. Actually, I heard through the translation that you refer to my elder brother, but actually it's my younger brother.
Your younger brother. Apologies. Who gave your younger brother the job, if you recall or if you know?
Response. I learned of that at a later stage that I asked him, and he told me that it was my uncle Pol Pot who gave him the job to be a photographer.
Now, when was the first time that you were reunited with Uncle Pol Pot after he had left for the liberation of Phnom Penh while you remained behind guarding the ammunition?
Response. I'd like to talk a little bit about my younger brother who was a photographer. In the jungle there was also a photographic group, but my brother was not amongst them. I think I need to explain a little bit further for you to understand in regards to my younger brother. At that time, I did not meet him yet. He was a soldier for the Vietnamese army. And later on, when we learned about that, I brought him in to live in the office. And after the liberation, he was used as a photographer.
All right, if I could pick up from that, maybe a few more details, make sure I understand it. You learn that your brother is in the Vietnamese army, and then you bring him to where you're stationed with Uncle Pol Pot. Do I have it right?
Response. I personally did not go and take him. Actually, through the research, then the zone 304, that is Coi Thun's zone, learns that my brother was with the Vietnamese army. So then they requested for all the Cambodian soldiers who were with the Vietnamese army to return into the army of resistance of ours.
Okay, but if I understand your previous answer, he came to the office where you were. So are we to conclude from your answer that your brother was with you when you were with Uncle Pol Pot?
Response: yes, that is correct. The President, the representative of the prosecution, you may proceed.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, there seems to be many questions, and counsel is not specifying the date or the place. Counsel Carnavas is simply not indicating where the brother would have met him, and therefore the witness is not in a position to provide specific answers since the questions are not focused enough.
Mr. President, he seemed to be pretty clear on the answer. I'll try to be more specific and take guidance from the prosecutor. Now let's go back to when you were in Phnom Penh. It's after the fall of Phnom Penh. We're in the year 1975. You've come back. You've told us that you initially went to the Ministry of Defense. And my question now is, when was the first time that you met Uncle Pol Pot after you came to Phnom Penh?
Response: I'd like to clarify that I did not stay at the Ministry of Defense, but I went there to clean. I met Pol Pot. After he already made his preparation at Office K1.
Do you know about what month in 1975 that would be?
Response: my apology. In fact, the first time that I met him was at Prokau Morakot, at the Prokau Morakot temple.
Okay, and what period are we speaking of? What's the period? So we can be precise.
Response: it was around May.
Now, did you, after that first meeting, well, let me ask you this. On that particular meeting, what was the occasion that you met your uncle?
Response: as I recall, it was during a meeting, although I did not know about the nature of the meeting. there was a meeting in that Prakal Pagoda, or which is now known as the Silver Pagoda.
And did you have an occasion to speak with your uncle when you saw him for the first time, now that you were in Phnom Penh?
No, I did not have any opportunity to talk to you directly. My duty was confined to security matters and the preparation of his food.
Now, when you said security matters, who had appointed you in charge of security matters? Who was your supervisor?
All I did was under the supervision of Pong.
And is this prior to going to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Yes, it was before I went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Was Chiem there as well, if you recall?
Yes, Chiem was also with us then.
And when you say us, do you mean he was also providing security for Uncle Pol Pot?
No, it was not the direct task under Pol Pot, but it was the overall protection task. And Hun was actually the direct supervisor, but Hun was dead.
All right. Well, was Hun above Pong or below Pong?
Hun was subordinate to Pong.
And was Pong there at the time to oversee the security of Pol Pot?
Yes, Pong was always there. He was in charge of the overall security matters.
Now, at that time, we're speaking now in 1975 in Phnom Penh, when you're providing security. Who is Pong's supervisor?
That I was not clear as to who was Pong's direct supervisor. I only knew that Pong was my direct supervisor.
How close was he to Pol Pot then?
As I said earlier, whenever there was a need to open a training session, then Pong would came by and open the sessions.
Well, would he have taken, to your knowledge that is, would he have taken directions or instructions from Pol Pot? Or would somebody else provide him instructions? And I'm asking only if you know.
បាទ
I did not know who else instructed Pong. If he was the person who instructed him, and no one else would have instructed Pong otherwise.
How long had Pong, by that point in time, been together with Pol Pot, to your knowledge?
ខ្ញុំចាំអត់បានទេលោក
I cannot recall it.
Well, would it have been before your arrival in the jungle in 68 or 69?
ខ្ញុំអត់យល់សំណួរនឹងទេលោក សួរអត់ស្ដាប់បានពេលវេលាអីអត់ដឹងជួបពេលណាយូរ
Well,
បាទតំណងចាប់ដើមបានទេបកប្រែស្ដាប់ឮទេបាទបាន
The President, the technical problem has already been sorted out. The Council, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Witness, by 1975, do you know how many years Pong had been with your uncle?
Pong had always been with my uncle since the date he disappeared.
And where was Pong from originally?
I am being frank because I want to assist the court. I met Pong maybe in 1966 or 1967. Back then, the resistance movement were gaining momentum, and they asked me to go to, cook corns, because at that time people grew corns. And then there I met Pong. And it was in a house, and surrounding that house there was a bridge, and there were many other vegetations or plantation, and corn was also grown over there, and I met Pong there. And over there I also learned the name of Chu Chet. Actually, I met him over there, and then actually when I first joined the revolution, I heard of this name. Then when I went there, I met him. And when I read the newspaper, I came to learn that Chu Chet was the chairman or editor-in-chief of one of the newspaper with the logo of plough. And when the resistance movement was gaining momentum against the American imperialists, I joined this resistance, and I attended a meeting in Santomuk school, and over there I met Pong. I did not know his name, and I did not know his full names, but I actually saw him because I recognized his face when I met him in the jungle. Then when I met him in a meeting in the in a school near Petchen traffic stop. It was one of the junior high school close to the traffic light, and I attended that meeting, but actually Pong at that time did not attend the meeting. He told me that he did not come to meet with everyone, but he was on guarding duty. And I was attending with others. That was my second encounter with him. And my third encounter with him was when I met Pong in 1977 or 1978 in Ratanakiri province. That was the history of my encounters with Pong.
Okay, the third encounter, to make sure we have the year right, that's not 77, but 67 or 68, correct? When you met him in Ratanakiri. When you met him, do you know whether he was associated back then with your uncle Pol Pot?
Batman.
Yes, I did.
All right. Now I'm skipping forward again. We're back in 1975, and you're on security detail with Chim, and you told us that Pong was in charge of security of this one particular meeting. And my question is as follows. If Pong is in charge of security for Pol Pot, what conclusions can we draw about his relationship with Pol Pot?
In this respect, let me clarify. He did not provide personal security solely for Pol Pot, but the overall security for the office. So at that time, office were on mobile, so wherever the meeting was convened, that place were considered office. So security in this context is not confined to the sole security of Pol Pot, but it is the overall security matters.
All right. Now, you told us yesterday or the day before that there were some occasions when you visited K1. Do you recall saying that?
Yes, I do. I used to go to K1 when there was some important or necessary matters there, then I would go there. And in addition, my wife was a cook there, so I visited the place.
All right. When you wanted to visit your, did you ever go there just to visit your wife? Or did you go there when there was an important matter, and while there, you visited your wife?
Well, I went there to visit my wife as her family member, and I did not go there arbitrarily or on any other purposes.
All right. Well, when you went there to visit your wife as a family matter, did you need a pass? Did you need some authorization? Or because you were Pol Pot's nephew, you could just come and go as you pleased?
បាទ
Let me clarify on this point. The kitchen of K1 office was outside the compound of the K1 office. It was a separate kitchen adjacent to the K1 office, and it was the place where my wife worked. So whenever I was supposed to go to K1 compound or premise, then I needed a pass. Actually, when we talk about authorization or pass, I issue the authorization or pass for my personnel, for my staff, but for myself, I could go there without any pass at all.
And that's what I want.
សូមបញ្ជាក់ច្បាស់ម្ដងទៀត
And let me make the point clear. But if I simply went to meet my wife over there, I did not have to be screened. But if Brother Ieng Sari asked me to deliver message or letters to K1, then I had to undergo checked.
All right. Now, you said earlier that you would write a pass for yourself, that you had the authorization to write yourself a pass to go there. Did I hear you correctly?
ខ្ញុំសរសេរលិខិតខ្លួនឯងឲ្យបុគ្គលិកខ្ញុំ
I wrote the pass to my staff so that they would be allowed to enter the premise. But if I went to visit my wife, then I did not need a pass because my wife's place were a separate place from K1. And if I went there on an official visit, then I had to have the pass and I had to be checked as well.
All right. Now, when you were at K1, we'll stick with this for a little bit, when you went in, did you attend any meetings, formal or informal, by the standing committee?
I went to K1 to deliver letters from my ministry, and after placing the letters over there, I had to return without saying anything at all, not even the people whom I met over there.
All right, but we're going to go step by step because I want to make sure that we're clear on this point. Did you attend any meetings hosted by the standing committee?
No, I did not.
What about by Anka, whoever they or that may be?
The word Anka is a bit difficult to respond to that question because when we talk Anka, it ranges from the small level, from the base level to the top level. I merely attended the organization at a smaller level, As for the standing ANCA or central committee or zone committee or so, I never attended.
Well, did you ever receive any documents from the standing committee or the center?
ខ្ញុំមិនបានទទួលឯកសារ
No,
ពីគណៈអចិន្ត្រៃយ៍
I never received one from the central committee or the standing committee.
Now, we talked about Uncle Pol Pot when you were in the jungle. While both of you were in Phnom Penh, did Uncle Pol Pot ever share with you what he was up to, what he was doing?
I don't really catch the question because you talk about the time when I met him in the jungle and in Phnom Penh. It is not quite clear in the question itself, so I find it a bit difficult to respond to that question.
I'll rephrase. When you and Pol Pot were in Phnom Penh from 75 to 79, did your uncle have any discussions with you about what he was doing, about his affairs?
Response, as I indicated this morning, no.
Did he tell you exactly what his authority and responsibilities were?
Response, as I indicated this morning, no.
Did he tell you about any decisions that he might have made either by himself or by others?
Response, no.
Did he tell you about the decision-making process? How he and his colleagues would reach decisions? Did he discuss that at any time during this period?
Response, no.
Did the conversation ever come up concerning Anka? Who was Anka? Who was a member of Anka? What did Anka mean? Did that ever come up?
Response, no.
Did you ever ask Uncle Pol Pot what Pong's authority and responsibilities were?
No, I dare not.
Having known Pong for many, many years, can you please tell us whether he was a talkative individual, whether he would share information that he had learned from various meetings? Would he share that information with you? Can you recall any occasions?
Response, during the conversation with me, no. Mainly, he discussed outside. He worked outside. I mainly stay and worked inside.
Did he ever discuss with you what he might have observed or overheard at meetings?
Response.
និយាយអីប្រាប់
He never told me anything regarding the meetings. However, I recall one event.
នេះសូមឲ្យច្បាស់ខ្ញុំចាំរឿងមួយចាំថា
I recall that
ពាក្យថាសួរខ្ញុំថាតើអៀងធិរិត
he asked me whether Ing Therat and Junjat,
សួរខ្ញុំចឹង
what were they? Did they have any conflict? It seems that they had conflict with one another.
ខ្ញុំថាអត់ដឹងអីដែរ
And I replied that I did not know anything.
ហ្នឹងខ្ញុំលាក់ថា
But in fact, I was thinking that there was something going on with him. Maybe he wanted to know about the internal affair, but I just kept quiet.
Did he ever tell you whether he had attended any standing committee meetings?
អត់មានទេអត់មានដែល
Response, no.
សូននិយាយទេ
He never said anything of that nature.
Did he ever tell you who he thought or knew were on the standing committee at the time?
ខ្ញុំសួរខ្ញុំស្ដាប់សំណួរ
Response.
តើសួរ
I
បងនឹងដែលស្គាល់
do not clearly understand the question. Are you asking me or are you referring to Pong regarding your question?
Well, my question is whether Pong ever had any discussions with you. In other words, when you would meet him or when he would meet you, did he disclose to you whether he had attended any of these meetings, including Central Committee meetings? Did he ever say anything about that?
បាទអត់មានទេ
Response, no.
Did he ever disclose to you, if he knew, who the exact members were of the Central Committee were? You know, how many people were on there, and the names?
អត់បានប្រាប់ទេ
No, he did not.
Did anyone tell you at the time who the Standing Committee members were or the Central Committee members were? Do you recall learning that information at that time? And the period I'm speaking of is 75 to 79.
បាទអត់មាននរណាមកនិយាយប្រាប់ជាផ្លូវការ
No, nobody told me officially regarding this matter. I just made my own conclusion.
Now, when you made your own conclusion, can you please share with us the facts that you based this conclusion on?
Response. While we were in the jungle, I saw my uncle Pol Pot and Nuon Chea were close to each other, so I made a conclusion that they were members of the standing committee. Besides, I observed major meetings were convened, and through what I heard other people say about this level or that level of membership of the committee, then it was likely that they were members of the standing committee. And there was a rumor that Pong would become a member of the central committee. But that was a rumor from outside. This is not what Pong told me, but it was I heard from the outsiders who spoke about that at the office K1. So that's the basis of my conclusion.
Can you name one person who was a member of the standing committee who shared with you information about who the members were on the standing committee? Did any one member share with you any information?
Response. No, nobody told me.
What about Central Committee members? Did any of those members ever have a discussion with you to disclose to you the members of the Central Committee?
Response, no.
Now today, when you were asked a question from the presiding judge about how many members were on the Central Committee, I believe you indicated that perhaps it was as many or as few as 20. Do you recall saying that?
Response. Yes, that's what I indicated to the judge. However, that was based on my conclusion, personal conclusion, and I was not officially informed of any of their official status.
Could
You may proceed. Please switch on your microphone, counsel.
you say on this matter then, sir, that when you came up with the figure 20 this morning, that you were speculating?
Response, yes. President, thank you, counsel and witness. The time is appropriate for the afternoon recess. We will take a 20-minute break and return at 3 p.m. Before we take a recess, I'd like to inquire from the defense teams, how much time does the Ian Sari defense team anticipate to have to conclude with this witness?
Well, if I had to give a guesstimate at this point in time, I would say not only the rest of the day, but perhaps as much as a half a day on Monday, perhaps less, but that's what I would have to say. Of course, over the weekend, we would, reconsider our position, but certainly I will need to go into Monday.
President, thank you, Council. What about Nunchi's defense team?
Still maximum half a day.
Thank you, Council. What about Kirsampon's defense? Council. Previously, we request up to 1.5 hours and we stand by that. Thank you, says the President. Court officer, could you assist the witness and the duty counsel with a refreshment during the break and have them back at 3? The court is now adjourned.